Recording going, and welcome you all to our latest installment of our American Mussar weekly gathering. This week we will be exploring the soul trait of silence, and a great irony, we'll be doing that through speech. But of course, silence governs when we speak and when we don't speak, and that's kind of part of our major theme. We will start, as we always do, with a short meditation to create a sacred space and to become present. So please relax in your chair and close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema. Listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema. Listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Oh, wow, what a treat for me. So many people joined when my eyes were closed. Always like that magical moment. Here they are. So hi to Joanne and Stacy and Marjorie and Bonnie and Stephanie. Great to see you all. As we get ready, oh, sorry, I have too many slide decks open. I need to close the wrong one. There we go. This is just a reminder of some of the schedule that I shared in the email earlier today. Next week, we're going to be on vacation, and then we'll come back for a week to do silence, and we're going to be doing something new, where a few weeks ago, someone really wanted to get feedback from the group, and so at 5 o'clock Pacific, after we sort of turned the recording off, she brought us our problem and people gave feedback. And so this is something that we'll give a try to again, maybe once or twice a month. So think ahead if you'd like to share something. The one difference is, please think of a Mussar frame. What soul trait might be in play or might help you kind of approach this problem? And I'll email about this in the email on the 13th before we go out. Then we have another month where we'll finish our 6th cycle. And then there's going to be something really special where I'm creating a workshop on Psalm 27, where, again, I will email about this, but there's a book by Rabbi Deborah Robbins, which has a daily contemplation based on Psalm 27. So for a month, we can kind of go through this together if you would like to join. I took a class on Psalms, where that was one of the activities we did. And we'll also look at how to analyze the Psalm, how to get the full meaning of what's going on. And as you may know, this corresponds to the month of Elul, which is the month before the high holidays. And it's traditional to read Psalm 27 every day. Then there's a vacation for a while for the high holidays, and then I'll be traveling in Israel, and we'll come back in October and get started again.
Greg, can you put the name of the book in the chat today?
Yeah, remind me at the end. I will put that in. Okay. So as we delve into silence, we'll look at, this is actually the mantra for this soul trait, which is, what benefit will my speech bring me or others? This was from Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levin of Satanov from his book Heshbon HaNefesh, which he wrote around 1810 or so in the Ukraine. So I'd like to kind of get your reactions to this. Why? I'll put it in the chat as well. So why might we ask this question? When might we ask the question? Do you think it's an appropriate question? Here we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, Sue.
Funny, because this is about when to speak and not to speak, and what, and my first thought was, we are people of the book and of education, and we speak to and one of the things is to educate. But then my second thought is opinions. I am speaking now to offer my opinion and my thoughts. So those were two things. When what benefit will my I think people, we go to listen to lectures to be educated, to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing. I think the benefit of offering my opinion, I guess that's also educational in a way. I mean, if I'm offering my opinion, maybe somebody will learn something from that.
Great. So maybe someone will learn if you offer an opinion. Yeah, thank you. Bonnie.
So I would, my Chavruta partner, my study partner, is not on right now, but we've been talking about silence, and this sentence. What year was this? Did he write?
Around early 19th century, like 1810, 1815.
Okay, so he wasn't involved in a 12-step program, which is too bad, because the two acronyms that I've used with this group in the past fit right in. The wait, why am I talking?
Mm-hmm.
And think, is it thoughtful, honest, necessary, intelligent, and kind? And I will share it, although it was really Karen is my Chavruta partner. And it was her idea. A very close friend of mine passed away on Monday. She's been very sick.
Oh.
She was a major leader in the South Bay Jewish community, president of the JCC, and we did Washington Lion of Judah events together. I knew it was coming, and I was really worried about the Shiva, the funeral in the Shiva, and how I could support her daughter, and who's about the same age as my daughter. Karen suggested that I take this young woman aside and say to her, I know this is going to be crazy, and there are tons and tons of people when we were in her home, And maybe all you want to do is sit quietly with me and we won't talk. And let's come up with a code word. So she came up with the word pineapple and then called me about 2 hours ago to say, out of nowhere, I thought of the word pineapple and I thought of what you offered me. And it was so, she said, I said, do you want that now? And she said, no, but I want you to know that I know I can use it with you. So this group has provided for me such wonderful opportunities to practice traits that I knew academically, but they weren't part of my life. Although wait and think have become part of my life. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm so sorry to hear about your friend. What was her name?
Sylvia Metz.
Sylvia Metz.
It'll be in the Merck this week. Her daughter completely forgot to write the obit.
Well, may her memory be a blessing.
And it is. Thank you.
For sharing that story. Are there other thoughts about this pausing and thinking about what benefit our speech might have? Kind of seems a little bit awkward and not very spontaneous. Maybe that's the point. Yeah, Marjorie.
I think that is the point because, in casual conversation, it's one thing, but when you start getting into some really, well, in this day and age, when we start getting into conversations where opinions are very strong and really defined, I think it's really important to know what you're going to say and be able to approach the other person and how you say it. Like, you have to really be selective about your words. Even if I have a difference of opinion, I try to frame it so I'm asking the other person, well, can you tell me more about that? I kind of put it on the other party. And like Sue mentioned, it's an educational experience. I mean, maybe I do have something to learn from somebody who we don't see this agree on things. But yeah, you got to be careful. You have to be really careful.
Yeah, people have very short fuses and people get triggered very easily. And these are very huge differences and important differences. And people are very attached to them. So yeah, asking, tell me more is a very inviting way to kind of listen. And it can sidestep some of the shortcut. Oh, you said this, that must mean you're this kind of person. And therefore, I make some conclusion about you, which doesn't really allow a lot of room for connection and community. Yeah, so Joanne and then Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, my experience today, I had two friends who do this. And in college, I had a girlfriend. I mean, a phone call with her was like 4 hours. It was like totally ridiculous. And I guess I didn't know how to get out of it. I'm of course much better now at that. But, I have this one friend, especially, it's like, it's all about her and all about her. And she doesn't even leave a pause for me to respond, and I have to say, maybe I want to say something to you, maybe I want to get a word in edgeways. I don't know what to do with her. I mean, if I just was quiet, she'd probably just go on and on and on and on and on. So I have to say, with both of these people, I have this in a few minutes or whatever, so they know that they can't stay on forever. And but it's really hard. I talked to this other friend, invited her to a 4th of July thing, and then I wanted to verify that she's going to pick me up. And she didn't respond to that. She was going on and on about something else. And I figured, all right, I'll call her on the 4th again. But it's just very frustrating when you're not listened to. And so that was my experience today. And also I wrote to you, Greg, about, I watched Nicole Wallace interview President Biden, and he was very careful about his responses because he can't like start a conflagration with his response to a question or but so it was very interesting, and he had really good control over what he was saying.
Thank you,
That's all.
Joanne. Such an interesting contrast between some people who just talk and talk and talk and don't seem to really think about how someone else might want to respond or what the impact of talking would be, and someone else who's, extremely controlled and measured about what they're saying. And for us, the challenge when we're thinking about this is, well, how do we approach this? What's the right approach for me to take, in a given situation? And how do I find like that right place to be? And I also think your story, Joanne, it kind of illustrates, that these aren't the only things that we practice. And sometimes we might need to set a boundary. It's like, okay, I only have X amount of time, to talk to you. So I think, Nancy, I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, this is a very poignant and apropos topic for me. And I guess what kind of hits me at first is I don't like walking on eggshells with people. I want to be me. I want to be accepted. I want to accept the other person. And I'm finding that some things I say are totally misunderstood, either with friends or family member. I have a family member who I said something, and weeks later they said that was really rude. I'm like, what? I mean, it was supposed to be funny. So like, how do you really watch every little thing you're going to say before you say it? The other is, my feeling is that when you say something, if somebody takes it, they're going to take it however they want. So they're going to have their interpretation of what you say and their reaction. And to me, it's like, I never mean to say anything harmful to anybody. And I feel it's their issue on how they're responding. I'm going through that right now, with a family member and other things, that it's my reaction and how I'm responding. Just let it go. It's not the most important thing. And, it makes me feel uncomfortable because sometimes I never know how I'm going to leave a situation and if they're upset at me. So then it's like, okay. And I think we raised this in another one of your silence classes months ago. It kind of leaves me feeling like I don't want to say anything to anybody anymore, because God forbid that they misunderstand me. And I have a whole bunch of other thoughts written down here. I think I kind of said it succinctly, but it may come up later. But it's a tough topic because you just don't know what to say, when to say, how the other person's going to react. And it's sometimes it's not even about you. It's really about them and what triggers them.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Nancy. It sounds like a really difficult and a little bit of a painful thing you're trying to navigate there. And I think one of the challenges, and is this, sometimes these practices are challenging. And to kind of stop and think, and if we think about how Rabbi Ira Stone describes the process of a Mussar practice, it's learning to bear the burden of the other person. And it is stopping to think about what's the impact of our words on someone else. And even if it's like, for example, if I know someone is triggered about a certain topic, and I bring the topic up anyway, and in a very predictable way, they get upset. Is that on me or is that on them? Since I knew that was going to happen. On the other hand, if I'm just having a conversation and somebody flies off the handle, and that happened a few months ago with someone who I was talking to, it was like, whoa, where did this come from? So these are very hard and complicated issues. And there's a reason why I put this chapter toward the end of the book, because it seems very simple and straightforward, but it's actually really, really complicated and also impactful. There's a saying in the Talmud, why are, words are deadlier than a sword, because a word can kill at a distance. Whereas a knife or sword, you have to be really close to someone. Unless you're a really good knife thrower, but even then, words can travel farther. So let's see, I see Bonnie and then Marjorie.
So the other night, I don't know if many of you know Rabbi David Walpe, who is a well-known author. He's retiring from Congregation Sinai in Los Angeles. He did and I have it, he did a presentation called The Best of Enemies, a rabbi's advice on civil conversations in a polarized society. It is available for you to listen to. I know David because when he was in rabbinical school, I was in the education program at the University of Judaism. And because my Judaica was so poor, I spent 3 years in the rabbinical school. So I remember him from the early 80s. And he was great then, and he was terrific on this. I don't get anything. Is it better for me to send that to you, Greg, or should people put in the chat if they want me to forward it to them? I just thought it was exactly what we're talking about, and he was very good.
Is there a link you can share in the chat?
No, there's a click on where it says watch the recording. So it's the whole email. I just pulled it up from trash, but we've never done, I don't remember us ever doing something like this before. So if I'm stepping out over your toes, Greg, I apologize.
Well, say if anyone wants to get it, they can send you a private message with their email address and you can then forward it to them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And was there another hand that was up? Shelley, I see you there, and then Marjorie.
Shelley?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great. So I love this conversation because when it comes down to people are scared to be vulnerable. And I had this conversation with my kids once, and we talked about, that how they perceive things can be triggers, and it's something that maybe you've had from your childhood that they experienced, and and most of the time it comes to a self-worth issue, and that's why people get triggered, because they think you're attacking them even though you're not. And so this one night we were making pizza, and I was the older son had rolled up oil on the bottom of the pan, and then I put the dough on, and then I put the sauce on, and my older son said, "Oh, well, you should have put oil on underneath the sauce." And I said, "Oh, well, we were making 2 pizzas, so we'll do it with that one." Because in my mind, I just wanted to make the pizza because we were hungry. And I had said to them about 2 weeks before, I said, it's really your responsibility that when you misunderstand something and your feelings are hurt, to speak up. I said, because I don't know if I'm not seeing your reaction because my back is to you, or if I'm not hearing it in your sound or voice. And I said, and one of the things I'm conscious of is I am conscious of listening to people to see if they are reacting. But that moment I didn't. But my younger son said to me, he goes, "Wow, you sure shot him down." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "He was trying to tell you, give you a suggestion, and you basically told him that you didn't want to hear what he had to say." And I'm like, "Really? You got that out of that, what I just said?" And so then I said to my older son, I said, is that how you felt? I said that I was dismissing you. And he goes, "Well, yeah, I was trying to give you a suggestion, and you basically said you didn't want to hear it." And I'm like, "Wow." I said, I'm really glad that you both spoke up. And I said, and I'm glad that you actually saw that moment. And I said, but I said, that wasn't my intent. And I said, the other thing, Ashkan, I said, had you not spoke up, I said, you would have all night long been in your mind going, my mother doesn't love me. She doesn't, think I'm smart enough. And then I said, and maybe I would have said something else later on and it would have validated us. I said, the thing is that we look for things to validate ourselves when we're feeling low or we have a low self-esteem. And the other day I actually said to him, I said, that I knew that he had a self-esteem issue. And I said, I said, a lot of it was the fact that I didn't want him to be this grown man that was a big burly thing. And I said, and I realized that he had a heart of gold. And I said, but I said, had I been a mother where I said, yes, you could do this, yes, you could do that, I said, maybe you would be a different person. I said, but that doesn't mean that you can't change who you are now. I said, just because you've had these things set into you, I said, we all have choices on how we react to things and how we want to become something. So that was me.
Thank you so much for sharing that story, Shelley. That's really, really a special moment. So thank you for sharing that. Marjorie.
I actually had a circumstance that's kind of opposite of what Shelley experienced. So I am involved with my sisterhood group at my synagogue. And we have, so right now we're getting our support letters out. So I created the support letter. Person who's got the database and collecting the support income changed the document that I created. And I was furious. I shared it with a couple other people in my group. And they said, well, you need to talk to her, blah, blah, blah. And, a few days passed and I just decided it's done. The changes have been made. This is what's, we are very mature adults and I can't change this person. If this is what she felt she needed to do, it's really no skin off. Is that the phrase? No skin off my teeth?
Who knows?
Is that the quote? God,
Skin off my teeth.
Skin off my nose, skin off
of all kinds of body parts potentially.
Right.
But,
What is the Yiddish? Ein Kleinigkeit. It's no big deal, right? And now I'm fine with it. So I'm glad I let it sit and I'm glad I didn't say anything because obviously there's a reason why this person felt they needed to make the changes. And it's a very small, it's not going out on the national news. There, I'm okay with it. So I'm really glad that I didn't say anything and there'll be other opportunities. So that's all.
Marjorie, thank you for sharing that. Well, that's a good, well, maybe that's not a good segue, but it is a good segue because I'm choosing to use it as a segue. Before we go to our breakout groups, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these 5 categories of speech that I alluded to in my email. And so let's take a look. And may I have someone to unmute and read the first 2? We'll kind of go a couple at a 2 at a time.
Okay,
I'll take care of it. Oh, there you go. Somebody else?
I'll go.
Go for it, Ron.
A mitzvah, speaking of Torah in awe of heaven. Number 2, to be shunned, false testimony, indecent speech, and slander.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at these first 2, and these are from, again, The Ways of the Righteous. This is a 15th century book by an anonymous author, probably a woman. Actually, Ron, why don't you read the rest of these?
All right. Number 3, petty chit chat. Speech containing neither transgression nor benefit, as most of the world's talk, such as speaking of what has already been done and the customs of kings and other such things of the affairs of the world. Number 4, beloved, speech in praise of good deeds and in
Deprecation.
There we go, of evil deeds. Number 5, permissible transactional, speech of trade for one's livelihood and of clothing, food and drink, and one's other needs. But one who minimizes their speech, even in this area, is to be praised.
Thanks, Ron. And I added the chit chat and the transactional because I thought those were kind of a little more modern and accurate. So I'm going to copy these and we'll put it in the chat. And so this is a little bit so these are all direct quotes. So some of it's language that we're not used to, and rarely do I talk about kings, but I do talk about other affairs of the world. And so so let's kind of get started. What is the point of all of these categories of speech? You know, is this helpful? Is there any insights you have kind of looking at any of these? Maybe to make the task a little bit easier to begin to approach, let's look at these in pairs. So let's look at the first two, kind of speaking of heaven or speaking of Torah, you know, really elevated speech versus slander and false testimony, etc. Is that, why might we begin there? Bonnie.
I don't want to get into politics, so I'm going to be very careful with the way I phrase this. Starting a number of years ago, I have been hearing about news that is not accurate, false news, situations that I believe took place and I've been told I'm wrong or I'm listening to. I try very hard not to listen to it, but it's hard not to. To me, that falls into Lashon Hara, and it's so creating a problem, I believe, in this country and among people that you really don't know what to say. And when I look at this and it's written in the 15th century, false testimony, it's hard not to say that it's not happening right now.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. And it's interesting, and what that's making me think about is, you know, maybe 10 years ago, talking about politics, that was category 3. You know, we're just talking about the elections, but maybe some of it is slander, or maybe some of it is false testimony, or it's taken that way, or the differences are so deep that people can't even agree on whether we're just talking about politics or, you know, I heard a story where a rabbi gave a sermon about loving kindness and being mercy and looking out for the poor, and they were castigated. Why did you give a political talk? It's like, what? You know, so it's very, you know, these are sensitive times. Yeah, we have Sue and then Ron.
Looking at the quotes, it's speaking to me of what the purpose is of your speech. So, and it's placing a value based on your intention. So if we speak Torah, if we speak of Torah, that's a mitzvah. But if we do a false testimony or slander, say something bad about somebody, you know, that's bad. You know, so it's making a statement based on what we're saying, you know, that's to be shunned. So it's the purpose or the intention of your speech is what I'm getting out of the difference between those two.
Thank you. Thanks, Sue. Ron.
You can use these two examples. One is orderly speech, which is used to build up things. And one is disorderly speech, and that is used for the opposite purpose, to tear down, to disrupt. And those are what we're talking about here, orderly speech versus disorderly speech, and what the, as one said, the intent, what these two things are designed to do.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so then if we look at the next two, we have what I call chit chat. It's just, no, it's not good or bad. You're just talking about, you know, groceries, you know, this is kind of where, you know, just things that happened or movies. Then we'll look at maybe the last three together. And then you have this praise of good deeds, you know, putting down evil deeds. And then you have these sort of what I call the transactional things. Checking out at the grocery store. I'm asking my daughter to get a coffee for me when she's going out to the coffee store. You know, these are sort of transactional. And here, this is where I kind of got into trouble, where I just gave the minimum and I didn't sort of explain where I was coming from. And that led to this misunderstanding. So what do you make of kind of these final three categories? Yeah, Marjorie.
Okay. I'm just trying to get some clarity. So what you are describing here as is my talking about just my basic needs and not bragging like to somebody else. Well, you know, I got this wonderful blah, blah bag, or will you clarify? I don't, your. what you're
Yeah,
describing
so
here.
Chit chat.
yeah, that's an interesting, where would that sort of bragging, where would that kind of fall in?
But when you're like asking what is permissible transactional, minimizing speech of trade for one's livelihood. So is that like minimizing my speech when I go in to get a grocery order? Is that
Yeah,
what you're?
that's kind of where I'm not sure I agree. I mean, I'll just be very clear. I'm not sure I agree with this. I mean, I think that the principle behind it is the more you talk, the more you might step in the doo-doo. So I think the idea is you sort of minimize what you say. But I don't know. That's like,
One who minimizes their speech, even in this
but
area.
I don't,
Huh.
you
It's
know,
interesting
so
what
it's,
the author was trying to.
yeah,
Is
it might be
something else?
worth kind of digging in a little bit more. I
Yeah.
haven't read this chapter in a while, but I find that one a little bit puzzling, but I think they're really they're kind of coming from a point of view where don't say too much, just say what you need to say and get on with it. And I don't know, that can kind of get in the way of relationality too. It's like, should I really be curt with the person who's checking out my groceries? That's, but maybe you're curt about the transactional stuff and then you go to chit chat. I mean, I don't know. I see.
Because one of the
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. When I think of one of like the prime examples that I've been given in Mussar of like seeing the other person in the image of God is even like in the grocery store. Look at that person who's checking you out and engage them and start conversations. Or so this feels a little antithetical to what. But I suppose it's one thing, to like start, going into your deepest, darkest issues with this total stranger who's just trying to get your, target order checked out. And I suppose there's fine lines. There's very fine lines.
Yeah, I kind of brought this up because it's
Okay.
interesting. It's not completely clear to me, how this all fits together. Sue.
So this makes me smile because it reminds me of a Hamilton line, which is talk less, smile more,
Mm,
which I try to remember sometimes. The whole point that you just mentioned, Greg, about, not speaking as much.
yeah,
So that's my, I don't know if anybody knows that, but it's a great,
I know it well.
Hamilton.
It's a great, that's a good one. Shelley,
I look
Joanne,
at
I
that
see
as,
your hand. Well, Shelley, Joanne, and Toby.
I look at that as maybe being humble. I work with the public, and so I get to learn a lot of things about people. I really should be a counselor sometimes. But I find that, people sometimes need to tell their story. But I think it's when you're kind of like saying, oh, look at the new purse I bought and all this stuff. And then maybe the person that you're talking to doesn't have the money to have that kind of purse and stuff. And now you're not realizing it, but you're in a sense making them feel small. So, I look at it as being more humble, like you don't need to blow yourself up because you're already a big enough person, and so, it's recognizing to actually build the other person up opposed to building yourself up, because that's just how I am. I've never been somebody who says, oh, look at me, look at me. I always engage with people, ask them questions, and try to give joy and to find something to laugh about. I'm the president of my building, and I ran into one of my residents the other day or today, and we were talking about what's been happening in the building, and I said, I'm so grateful. I said, because I so believe in community, and this building had not been in community since COVID. Everyone was afraid of everybody. No one was talking. And I said, and I'm so grateful because so many people have been stepping up and offering their services to do things, whereas before they were shying away. And because I'm the kind of person that says, hey, give me the information. I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to put you down. I don't judge you. Like we all have perceptions and we all need to get things out. But let's be mindful, and let's have patience, and just don't yell and stuff. So I was very happy when she said that, because she gave me a hug, and I said, yeah, I said it's such a great thing to be in a community. And I think like it's that quote I think you sent out once was, first work on yourself, then work on the village, then work on the world. And so I've worked on myself. Now I'm working on my village. So the world is next. Yay.
Thank you, Shelley. Toby, oh no, sorry, Joanne, and then Toby, and then Robin.
Yeah. I guess, I was never good at chit chat, so I always feel at a loss at parties and things like that. But then I did work with the public for 25 years, first on the phone and then in person. And in person, it was much easier to relate to people. And I did have to ask them a lot of questions. And, I think, I don't think I was ever haughty, even though I think some of my coworkers thought I was, because they didn't try to make friends with me and I was shy. Anyway, so this is how misunderstandings happen. And my building, I have some neighbors I'm friendly with, and a lot of them, you always say hello, but some people don't really respond. And people on my floor know better than other people. So what's my point? I don't know. But the thing about being, you can be like, have a nice demeanor and affect, even if you don't say a lot of words. If you say the words that are necessary to do whatever the transaction is. And sometimes I make a little joke or comment, and people usually laugh and they appreciate that. So I think seeing the other person in the conversation is very important, and listening to what they're saying. And I really had no problem, except if the person was very abrasive and rude and accusing and blah, 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 and then that always got my hackles up. And so I would always like pretty much tell them to shut up. Not so in so many words, but I'd say I'd interrupt them. I'd use interrupting them as a way of stopping them from being abusive. And
Thank you,
also getting
Jen. I think you're highlighting just the complexities and the difficulties involved in kind of right sizing the speech and how much is listening and what am I willing to listen to and how do I, if I'm shy and then, you know, people don't get to know me, and it's a very hard and it's a hard balance. And
Mhm.
it's why I think this soul trait is so right for all of us to find something to work on. Talking more, talking less. So Toby.
I think the category of chit chat is the most confounding to me. An example is a friend of mine who I used to work with, but who went on to a different job. I hadn't talked to him in probably 3 or 4 weeks. And I ran into him in a coffee shop that we both frequent quite often. And I knew that he had gone on to a new job. And so I said, hey, you know, how's your new job going? Oh my God, you'd think I'd said, you know, I don't know, your wife wears combat boots or something. It was, I listened to 15 minutes of a tirade on how awful his new boss was and how
Boy.
he hated everyone. And, you know, and I should have probably done what Joanne did and said, hey, you know, just take a break, dude. But I was so taken aback that all I did was stand there and listen to him talk. And, you know, I thought it was a very bland subject matter that I had chosen, you know, but apparently not. So just goes to show.
Yeah, sounds like again, not easy. Ron.
Just a little something in favor of chit chat. And by that, I mean small talk, how's the weather? How is your vacation? That type of thing. In today's polarized society, chit chat might be as far as you can go in a conversation with some people without stepping on somebody's toes or without offending them. So although in the 15th century, chit chat might have been frowned on, I'm not so sure that it doesn't have a place in today's society.
Mm.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, maybe that's where the only way we can begin a relationship with somebody. Okay, well, it is time. We're going to go to our breakout rooms, even though it is going to be short. There's a really long quote from Rabbi Shefagol, but the key line is the first one. As a young rebel, my truth sometimes lacked kindness. My passion for justice sometimes shattered peace. So the question for, you know, with your partner is, when are you challenged to speak the truth with kindness? You know, that is, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms and we won't have a lot of time, but let's go do it. And for those of you who've been watching the streaming, thank you so much for being here. This is where we say goodbye to the streaming portion, and we will reconnect next week. And please feel free to stop by AmericanMussar.com to join our email list.
Boy, that was short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We we're a little squeezed.
I don't even know what we talked about.
We only have a couple of minutes, but we could sort of do a speed round if people want to share anything. To do a little 1 or 2 sentence comment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Sarah. Sarah, then Bonnie.
I think that people have different communication styles. And some people are direct and some people are less direct. And it's like a dance.
Mm,
And, I know I think it's good to know yourself and figure out where you are on the continuum and adjust. And I think that for me, that's coming with maturity or trial and error and people getting offended.
Thank you, Sarah. Bonnie and then Nancy.
We talked about if somebody is going through some serious health issues and procedures, not a good idea to talk about somebody who hasn't done well with that same
Mm,
illness. Keep your mouth shut. Not helpful.
Yeah. Maimonides wrote a whole guide for how to visit the sick. And
Mhm.
one of them was don't bring up bad news if somebody's in the hospital, which there's a song in the musical, it's the Wizard of Oz musical, The Wiz, which is don't bring me no bad news. So
Mm.
Nancy.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Sarah said, it's also like if you're talking with somebody, you may have different communication styles. Nip it in the bud. If you don't understand somebody or you're taking it like, what? What did you say? Then go, excuse me, can you please explain that again? I'm not hearing you. And don't let it fester, because that's where the problems happen. And I think she said it very well, that we all have different communication styles, and it's that dance is really difficult to perfect.
Yes. It is a dance. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We're going to end the way we began with a short meditation, and this we'll just do in silence. So we'll do a 1-minute silent meditation to close. So please relax and close your eyes. Just allow your body to drop into stillness. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.